Let us help you reach your peak in retirement. It's time for Retirement Elevated with Sean Lee.
Welcome into this edition of Retirement Elevated. Thanks for hanging out here on the podcast with us as Sean and I talk about things we hear. People say lots of stuff, especially in today's world, but it doesn't necessarily mean they know what they're talking about. So we're going to do Well I Heard kind of segment here on the podcast and get into some good conversation with Sean as usual. What's going on, my friend? How are you this week?
Just try not to melt, man. It's hot.
Yeah, you and I were just talking about that.
It's hot.
It'd be toasty. But it's July. I mean, what do you expect, right?
Well, it's been record-breaking heat.
Yeah.
And the boys we were supposed to have a couple of scrimmages this week. We'd shut down baseball, but there's a team going to the Nationals, and they wanted to scrimmage us. Mm-hmm. And fortunately, they canceled because on the turf where we were going to play, it had been like 115 degrees.
Yikes. Yeah, that's a little warm.
Oh, brutal.
Yeah.
Brutal.
Yeah, I kind of feel like this segment, do you remember that Dana Carvey used to do a character on Saturday Night Live, and he was like this real old guy, and well, back in my day, we didn't have a hair dryer. We went outside during a tornado. And that's how we dried our hair, right? So I kind of feel like that this could have that kind of feel to it, but we're going to make this kind of more financially related instead of, how you dry your hair. But anyway, it's one of those things where we always hear stuff, and sometimes there's, I don't know, most times I think there's probably a nugget of truth in things that people say and, colloquialisms. Is that how you say that? That's a big word.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so there's always like a little something in there. But let's talk about why it may not be the best idea, okay?
Okay.
So let's start with, for the financial one, the biggie, which I think is the biggie anyway that you hear all the time is, well, I heard you have to have $1 million, to retire these days. And so we push for this magical number that is completely arbitrary to me, Sean. I'll get your take on this because depending on where you live, how you live, who you are, so on and so forth, it could be less than that, could be way more than that.
It's such a weird, arbitrary number, and it's like, oh, I need $1 million. Well, for what? And
to do the things I want to do, right?
Well, and that's exactly it. I mean, you can look and you could say, well, I need $1 million to retire in order to accomplish these income goals, right? So maybe you need $50,000 or $60,000 a year of income. You need to, you want to be able to travel. You want to do some things, and you have no pensions or limited Social Security, whatever it may be.
Right.
The ads and the fear mongering that goes on when it comes to you got to have this much for retirement, you got to have that much, you got to have 1.6 million or 1 million or whatever it may be.
Right.
That doesn't take into account like all the working pieces that come with building a plan. Well, did you work for the state of Utah, for example, where you have a pension, or for IHC where you've got pensions as an employee?
Because if you got pension, there's a good chance that you might not need as much as you think you do. Because between that and Social Security, you've got two sources of guaranteed income there. And
it all comes down to the math problem, right? Like
right.
If you need $60,000 a year and you've got, 45,000 of it coming in from Social Security or a pension, mm-hmm. you really only need to come up with another 15,000 to 20,000 a year. And that's not going to, you don't need $1 million to do that.
Right. Yeah. The difference is your shortfall, right? So what it is that you're going to be pulling from your nest egg to make your plan go. And often that's where I think the conversation piece comes in, because a lot of it's going to also have to do with what kind of lifestyle you want in retirement and who you are as people and where you live, Sean, because, you like to travel, for example. You travel quite a bit, and where you live and the traveling is different than where I live. And I've got, I'm in the sticks, I'm in the country. My taxes are lower than, even my neighbors in Wake County or whatever. I'm in the, kind of the smaller one. We pay a smaller amount of taxes on the property, and my wife and I don't. We've been building up our property for more of the homesteading gig, right?
Right.
So that's going to be a totally different animal than someone who's out doing a whole lot of stuff.
Yeah, it's what do you want your life to look like,
right?
And if you want to spend a lot of money, you have to have more money.
Exactly. So the 1 million might not do it, right? It might be 2. And there's nothing wrong with no matter who you are. We're not doing the homesteading thing because we don't have enough money to retire. We're not there yet. We're getting close, but it's simply because that's who we are as people, right? So you've got to factor that in.
Well, and I get questions a lot. Hey, Sean, how are we doing? How are we in comparison to other people? Well, that's another question. I'm like, you know what? It really doesn't matter.
Right.
You're, and I use my mom as an example. She was a single lady. Mm-hmm. She raised 2 kids. She moved from Wyoming back to Massachusetts, where she's from, and then she taught 20 years as a teacher in Massachusetts. She's making more money in retirement off pensions and Social Securities than she ever thought she would. And now she's at the point where she saved a good chunk of cash between her and my stepdad. They're not using any of it.
Nice.
So for her math problem, did I save enough? Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
Does it matter if you have the same nest egg as the guy down the road because you've got more money coming in each and every month from your secure income sources than maybe that guy?
Yeah.
So it's all relative, and it comes down to, what does my math problem need? What's my surplus of income, or what income do I need to come up with, and then what have I saved to accomplish that goal? Retirement planning is really that simple.
Yeah, and I think for people that are trying to push for the $1 million, and again, let's say they're like, oh, it's $1 million. I'm never going to get there. I'm so far away, so therefore I can never retire. And unless you go in and find out what it is that you need to make happen, you could be working way longer than you need to. Because what if you go in, you're pushing for the $1 million, you find out that 700,000 gets it done, and you're at 600,000, you know what I mean, or something like that. You're closer than you realized, or whatever. So it's all about running the plan and getting getting the math solved, as Sean said. So don't just go with the "well, I heard." So let's go on to a couple more here. Okay. Well, I heard number 2. Well, I heard you should start taking Social Security as soon as you can. Because they're going to go broke. They're going to go bankrupt, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, our largest voter pool in America collects Social Security, and so the reality of Social Security going broke, or the chances of that happening, in my opinion, are pretty slim. There's, that's another fear-mongering financial marketing on the radio that you got to do this and that. You got to maximize Social Security. You got to do this. Like, Social Security is a math problem. It's that simple. And once again, if you're going to retire at 62, do you want to leverage your money or Social Security to complement your income? So if I take Social Security at 62, yes, I'm taking out less each month. But let's say that at 62 I get $2,000 a month, and at 66 or full retirement age you get $2,500. Well, if you retire at 62, you have to come up with $2,000 a month somehow, some way. Or you can use the government's money and not spend as much of your money and keep more of your money in your pocket. And so when we look at Social Security, there will be a mathematical point in time where it makes the most sense to take it. Sometimes it makes sense to take it early. Sometimes it makes sense to take it a little later. If you're married, one spouse taking it 1 year, the other spouse taking another year, that may make sense.
Yeah, true. And with the whole, that Social Security conversation, it's like, if you need the money and you want to turn it on early, that's the biggest reason to turn it on early, because you flat out need it, right? Because it needs to happen in order for your plan to go, or whatever it is that you need to get done. But without a strategy, just turning it on because, well, the government knows me, or I fed into it, or it's going to go broke, you could be costing yourself a ton of extra money there. So just be careful, run those numbers, get a plan in place, and don't just assume because we're here. Because again, we all know if it bleeds, it leads, and that's the way they're going to stay. And we know that they're more than likely going to fix or make changes to Social Security. They're just going to wait till the absolute last second to do it. And I think many people would, and I think many economists and financial professionals, Sean, agree that changes are coming for sure in that, but probably people 50 and over, or at least 55 and over currently, will probably not have anything changed. They're going to be grandfathered in. So no,
and don't listen to Jane down the street that you were hanging out with over dinner, because she's usually not the foremost expert on Social Security.
Yeah, and Jane's a cool chick, right?
Yeah, she's great. She's fun to hang out with and have dinner, but
yeah,
I would take Social Security or advice from her.
Exactly. All right, I got a fun one here. Let's do another one here. I love these ads. Right now, we've got all these problems going on: devaluation in money. They're printing money. Blah blah blah. They're killing the. So the kind of, well, I heard that the dollar isn't going to be worth anything anymore, and I should go to gold. Right? I love this one because we just don't. That's a good hedge, right? And it's like this cracks me up when you see those gold commercials. They always buy gold because the economy's going terrible and the dollar's dropping in value, and in 10 years it'll be worth half or whatever. How do they want you to pay for that gold, Sean? With
cash.
Dollars. Exactly. Right? So it always cracks me up. So I don't know. What's your thought on this? Well, I heard that the dollar's going to the tank, so I should go to gold.
I mean, sure. Like the gold reserve currency, like gold. I mean, if you think about it, gold isn't a liquid asset.
It's not been a good investment, really. If you go look at the historical number over the last 20 years, I think it's about in the same spot it was 20 years ago.
Oh, and by the way, it doesn't pay dividends. It doesn't reinvest itself. It just sits there.
Yeah. And what's the old joke, right? I mean, are you really going to shave off a chunk of gold to go down and try to get some bread?
Right.
I'm
going to sell my gold coins, and
yeah,
and you got to sell your gold coins to get cash. So there's a lot of interesting stuff that comes out in the media, and gold is one of them. I get a lot of questions about the U.S. not being the reserve currency anymore. We did Mike Sorrentino, our chief investment officer, did a write up about the reserve currency, and it's the reality of it is people are worried about China, not even in the realm of possibility right now. The U.S. currency is the reserve currency for like 85%, 90% of the countries in the world.
Right.
China is at like 4%. A lot of things are going to have to change in order for that to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But, the world runs off of the U.S. dollar. I mean, that's just kind of the reality of it right now. We're the only economy that continues to flourish and grow and build and give our citizens the opportunity to create businesses.
Yeah, even with all of our other faults and stuff going on, right?
Right.
Exactly.
Right. So, it's control we can control, and I can go to the media right when I'm done with this podcast, and I can find an article that's positive on the economy, and I can find an article that's negative, and spin it any way I want.
Well, so as precious metals, as an investment piece of your portfolio, some advisors are completely against it. Some are fine with it, but in moderation, like anything else. Okay, I really want to have gold. It makes me feel better. Okay, fine, but let's not do more than 5% of your overall portfolio, or 10, something like that at max. Right.
Right. I mean, I like steak, but I probably shouldn't eat it for every meal.
you got cows in your portfolio.
I should. It's like a diet, right? I'm not going to have too much of one thing.
Yeah, exactly. You ever played Trivial Pursuit? Remember that game?
Yeah.
It's in the playing pieces was a circle, right, with a bunch of pie wedges. And you had to collect the different colored pie wedges when you answered the questions correctly in order to, go to the home thing and win the game. And so I thought that's a great analogy for a financial plan. You got a bunch of different pie wedges. You got to get the right, you got to get some different pieces of the pie, get them put in there, and then off you go, right? So no matter what it is, you got to make sure that you're getting a well-balanced strategy put in place and not just doing the well I heard thing. And you could apply this to tons of stuff, right? We could do one more real fast, which is, it's not right now, but it's always, looming, Sean, which is the I heard the market's going to tank any day, or things aren't looking good, or tech just had a bad couple of days, so the market's getting ready to crash. So what, I should get all my money out now, right? And that you could use this probably 6 or 7 times a year. This people start feeling like this.
Well, the people that don't get concerned have clarity. I just got a call this morning, from a family that's considering working with our team, and that was, I heard the markets are going to correct, so we got to get out. I'm like, why? Like, once you have clarity in your plan, then your plan is going to be structured exactly how you want it to be. And you never have to get out of the markets if you don't choose to. And
you got to stay in anyway to some degree, right? You got to keep up with inflation, and it's still the best place to do that.
Well, and it comes back to, how do you want to create income? Do you want to create income using protected money or market-based money or a combination? Mm-hmm. Once you can really answer that question, and how you're going to drive income in retirement, mm-hmm. and you're comfortable with it, and you feel good, and you understand how it's going to work, mm-hmm. all these ups and downs of the market are less concerning than if you don't have clarity.
Well, to your point, and to kind of wrap up this whole thing, so while we were chatting, I went ahead and just went to marketwatch.com, and the main thing right on the page is, and we were talking about the heat as well, right? So it's a picture of a person standing next to a sign that's 133 degrees, and it says the S&P is hot, the NASDAQ is even hotter. How traders are bracing for a pullback.
Yep.
Right? So it's, and then the bullet points right below are why stocks could get a boom from the falling U.S. dollar. Jamie Dimon says U.S. consumers are in good shape, even though the evidence says he's wrong, right? So it's like everything is like counteractive right in the same sentence, right? Or in the same headline. It's like it's up and down at the same time.
Right.
So we all know the news is, that tries to stay as sensationalistic as possible. So just be careful, do yourself a favor, have a strategy, have a plan in place, and that way, no matter what you heard, you don't necessarily have to let it keep you up at night, right? You can have conversations, you can go down to Jane's and have a good chat about whether Social Security is collapsing or not, but you don't have to panic during that conversation if you know you've got a good strategy in place.
Exactly.
So, yeah, exactly. So get yourself on the calendar, come in, talk with Sean and the team at Elevated Retirement Group. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast or share it with others who might benefit from the content. You can find it at their website at elevatemyretirement.com. That's elevatemyretirement.com. And you can also find it just by typing in Retirement Elevated on Apple, Google, or Spotify. Sean, thanks for hanging out, buddy. I'll see you next time.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
All right, have a good week. Don't melt. And we'll catch you a little later on here on the podcast. This has been Retirement Elevated with Sean Lee.
Investment advisory services offered through Elevated Capital Advisors, LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor.